Hi everyone, welcome to our special podcast series on Race 2020 where we bring to you the latest updates from the mega AI event all week long. I have with me the entire INDIAai content and research team that's been working round the clock to bring you all the latest from Race 2020. Hi Jibu, how are you? How's it going? And good morning to you.
Hi Sindhuja, hi everyone else. Hi Saumitra, hi Nibeda, hi Samiksha.
Hello.
Nibeda,
Hello.
finally, the world is happy to see your face. So yeah, otherwise we could have had her like this secret mysterious entity, who don't show off her face but exists. So it was excellent yesterday. So many panels, so many events. I think, Saumitra, how was the data payment one?
Yeah,
Mohandas
so
Pai.
that was very good. In fact, he started off by laying out the journey, which resonated very well with what Dr. Reddy spoke the previous evening. And some of the good things is that people are actually thinking seriously that there has to be a lot of dignity in this whole thing, especially for the bottom of the pyramid. The experience for the next 100 million users or whatever million users is going to be very different. For them, security is paramount. I mean, if something, God forbid, if something happens, the hit on them is going to be far greater than anything one can imagine. So that experience and it's like a one shot thing, one bad impact, and it'll just wipe out the trust factor completely. So that was a very good session. They spoke about several angles. Also the RBI gentleman, the general manager from RBI, Ravi Shankar. He also enumerated certain principles. He especially spoke about these TNC, which we just blindly sign up, right? I mean, whenever there is something online, we just without even reading, we just tick off and sign. But that in his view, that just cannot be the only sole guiding criteria for such contracts. There has to be a legal, or there has to be a legal binding to it between the user of the information and the one who's supplying the information. It just can't be that TNC thing. And the most important thing he spoke about, I think, is about the ignorance of the black box, a new concept which he introduced. He says that there has to be an audit trail, so you just can't say that I don't know, like the black box, I don't know, I've lost trail. But that can't be the case. I mean, there has to be the trail should be verifiable. And the lady, I'm forgetting her name, Kaizumu, I think her name was. She came up with some very good ideas on how it has to be a very uniform approach, irrespective of the wallet size of the user. So it isn't that. So there has to be a sense of fairness which has to be built in, into the design. And the gentleman from Aadhaar, the technical person. So he spoke a lot about open sources and how things were being built on open sources, and Aadhaar is doing. So generally, that's about what it was.
I think there were so many sessions happening. Some were happening parallelly, and some were,
Yeah.
I mean, everything was interesting. Some were very deep into some of the things. I think one of the sessions that was quite interesting, and we were looking forward from the day one, was the empowering 1 billion plus. I think Sandhuja was there. I mean, I was there half the way. I mean, it was really amazing. And I really enjoyed listening to Victoria Baines, especially. Sandhuja,
Yeah.
what's your take? And of course,
Yeah.
Jenny was there.
Absolutely. No, it was a very good panel. I think I mean, if you were there for the first parts, I think you would have realized there were some technical glitches because a couple of pre-recorded messages weren't really playing, but they picked it up really well. And I think Nishta Satyam from UN Women did a phenomenal job of moderating the entire panel. And it can't be easy, coordinating, especially with different mindsets. And I think what was interesting in this panel is that it wasn't really India heavy, it wasn't really local heavy. It had a lot of international perspectives, and I think it's very important to keep those standards in mind and keep those examples in mind while we are building our ecosystems, because there's so much we don't really know and there's so much we're not really aware of, and yet we could be feeding all of these biases into our AI systems. So I think helped some of the standout speakers, and I think this is my takeaway. I don't know if everyone will agree with this, but I honestly feel like a lot of people who are not from here, I mean, all of the international speakers that we bring on board really have a knack, have a way in which they try to communicate what they talk about, and they have a very realistic way of connecting with the audience, and that came through yesterday. So a couple of really standout speeches, according to me, were of course by Jenny Leigh Fleury, for instance. She was the last to speak, so I'll go with that first. She is, like I mentioned yesterday in yesterday's podcast Roundup, that she has an incredible personal story of triumph and struggle. She's actually hard of hearing. She's almost completely deaf. And another thing that people don't really know is that a couple of years ago, she had a almost fatal, near brush with death, because she had an embolism in her leg that she did not know was an embolism, and it just felt like a throbbing pain. And by the time she realized it, it was well on its way to sort of, affect her heart and lung functions, and she could have died. So because they caught it in time, and they gave her the timely medical intervention, but it's left her with a fair amount of deficit in her left leg, and she's been using the support of a cane. So I think she's someone who truly understands what it's like, to have a disability and live with it. And despite that, it's not something that comes through, especially when you watch her talk and communicate. And she's had a 15-year career at Microsoft, and I think it's very telling of an organization like that to be able to include people like that in the mainstream, in the leadership, and ensure that they have a say and determine how the course of leadership should be. I think it's literally lead by example, and you couldn't find a better candidate and a better person than Ms. Fleury to really lead that mandate along. So she was one whose speech I really enjoyed. And another one, of course, goes without saying, Dr. Victoria Baines. She was a revelation. She spoke
I think we all were tagging the wrong Victoria on the Twitter yesterday. There's another really? Victoria Barnes from Nottingham University.
Yeah.
So she's also a PhD, physicist PhD person. And what happened was I accidentally tagged her, and then some of the people followed my suit, and everybody started tagging this wrong Victoria.
She did talk about our event last evening.
Yes,
she was speaking about it, and she was. She also mentioned how this is an all-woman panel, so it's really not that difficult to get one. So I don't think anyone here can have any excuses saying we don't have enough women to represent, because come on, yesterday's panel was literally like flowing to the seams with women, and really, really good ones at that. So Dr. Baines was again, like I said, a revelation. She spoke so much about being able to understand the very impact of AI and really sort of tracing her steps back. She, what was nice was that she is aware that there are protectionist tendencies. We are human beings. We will tend to flock and protect, the communities or community sentiments which are close to us, which is okay as long as you're not impinging on human rights. And I think that is the next challenge where AI comes in, and that's where I think you will consciously keep biases out of the fray, or at least try to limit the biases and not just make that the norm and make it an exception instead. So I think that approach is something that's new, and I think that's something that is a lot of food for thought, in my opinion. Of course, Jacqueline Carnot was another, really good speaker. She spoke really well, and specifically, what I particularly liked about what she said was, she said the internet was technically an array of connected systems that is supposed to keep your interaction safe. But the truth is, there is nothing safe about the internet, especially when it comes to protecting the rights of minorities, protecting the rights of the underprivileged, protecting the rights of children, minors for that matter. And this is just straight off, the speech given by Susie Hargreaves of the Internet Watch Foundation on child sexual abuse. So I think it was a good tee off, to reckon that there is a big bad world of the internet out there, and a lot of it has to be regulated. And the unfortunate, lag is that while technology is advancing so rapidly every other day, our regulations, our governance is way behind. So the gap is something that's increasing, and that's something that needs to be fixed. And if that is not fixed, then we are going to constantly have this problem of AI biases. And she spoke a lot about why this is going to be a detrimental social problem in the future. So these are something that require repatriated measures right now. In fact, they should have been done yesterday, according to her. So that was interesting, and I think like I said, Susie Hargreaves, who's who's heading one of the most, I think, interesting enterprises, interesting organizations with a soul, the Internet Watch Foundation, that's on a mission to try and eradicate as much as possible sexual, abuse content online that is targeting children. And some of the statistics she rolled off were absolutely mind-boggling. And she said that there's been a 14% increase from last year in terms of the amount of traffic that they're looking at, which is directed at child sexual abuse online. And however, on the contrary, she said, while these numbers are growing and it's very disturbing, at the same time, we're trying to use as much of AI and ML as possible to help mitigate, these threats and help the overall ecosystem to become a lot more responsible about this whole thing. And it's good that pretty much the who's who of the internet industry are back.
Yes, I think the session was pretty much setting the theme, right? The responsibility, I mean, we generally speak about AI in the technology space, but the impact on humans, I think that is something we rarely speak much about, and this is something very interesting.
That was pretty much the only point of the panel yesterday, which I found.
And Victoria is also a law enforcement officer, so that adds an extra dimension to her speech. So, Nivedita, what was your highlights from yesterday? You are on mute, Nivedita. Yes. I was like, just want to say that.
Well, I remember because this is the most common mistake everybody says.
Even in the conference, it was like the most key phrases. You are on mute.
So, no, yesterday's session was really good. In the sense that it has a very balanced representation from all the fields, that's academia, be it industry, and be it also the bureaucrat as well. So it had a balanced representation, and they spoke really well on regulations for responsible AI. And the key takeaway that I got from it was, yes, everybody did agree that there was a need for regulating AI, and that there is a need to monitor those regulations so that they can remain dynamic and they can assist in human functioning rather than kind of doing away with all human intervention. So they also wanted to create public and private partnerships so that the benefits of AI can reach the lowest of the lowest level. So maybe a farmer or a cobbler for that matter. And the most interesting part was pointed out by, I forgot, I think his name is Ananda Rao. He's from PwC US. So he had a very interesting take saying that he had a very thought-provoking question for the audience, saying that is it really that we are trying to displace human with AI, or is it that we are wanting AI to help assist human beings? So if we, given that India has a very young demographic divide, and it's important that we keep this in mind and hence use AI as a way to assist human rather than finding, helping, trying to displace humans with AI. So this is the most good part that I could relate to. Yes, this is a very ongoing debate that's going on. And from a research perspective, there was somebody called Vineet from IIT Hyderabad. He also had a very research bent of mind, and he kind of explained two things really well. That he said that basically we need to regulate. So in a pipeline, in an AI pipeline, there are three parts. One is data, one is AI ML algorithm, and the other part is a metric for measuring the AI ML output. So the need to regulate comes from the need to put regulation should be on the data as well as on the outcome that is produced by that AI MI algorithm. So we need to regulate both the data and the metric rather than only focusing on the data. So I think these two were the really stand out, that most important part that caught my attention and I thought needs to be highlighted. Others were pretty okay, same thing, regulation needs to be done, and yes, there is cyber terrorism.
I think nobody's gonna come and say, we can't have regulation. Let's leave AI the way it is. It's like somebody, you're going to the circus and you are saying, you don't need ringmaster. Let the lions and tigers. I mean, not now, but
it's a very accurate.
In a fresh perspective is important, which I think the IIT Hyderabad guy and the PwC guy did bring in.
Right. Samiksha, you are also on a panel on responsible AI, isn't it? But it's from more of a education, learning perspective, isn't it?
So it was titled Education and Awareness for Responsible AI. And why I thought it was a very insightful panel is because they actually went beyond saying just, yes, we need regulation, and actually went on to highlight the correct parts in which it can be done. For example, Dr. Rahul Panikkar from Vardhwani, he highlighted the need for establishing a set of rules, norms, and tools for bringing about a culture for responsible AI. And then we had Dr. Rohini from Microsoft who spoke about the 6 responsible principles for responsible AI that Microsoft is following, and not just the principles, but they've actually established a trajectory that will help them go from principles to practice, which I thought it really shows the resolve of the company towards responsible AI. We had representation from Amazon, Mr. Rahul Sharma, who gave the keynote, and he actually went as far as saying that there isn't a single business function at Amazon that hasn't been made better through machine learning, and hence he highlighted the need for open data, ML-ready open data to be available. And
I think the open data and how machine ready open data, as well as in cleaning up the open data, a lot of work should be gone into there, because in the end the AI tools are just how do we say, it's just the bias in the AI comes from the data itself, right? So we can I think fixing the data availability and the data neutrality itself is it's a big challenge.
Yes, and I think this very important statement by Dr. Rohini was, to agree on what computers should do rather than what they can do, which I think really.
I'm a huge fan of Rohini Srivastava. Recently, we had a chance to interview her for INDIAai, and it was one of the most, how do I say, insightful conversations we had. I mean, we spoke with many of the leaders in the industry, Gargi Dasgupta, Subram Natarajan, Rohini, Sridhar Velamakani, all these people. But it was all these people add a different perspective, and some of their conversations, like Rohinis, are like so rich and packed. You don't want to miss any single part, because you're afraid you will lose something out.
We had Dr. Kai Anderson from Swedish AI, who actually pointed out that it was almost ironic that representation from people from the industry are talking with more clarity than probably government people would. So
I was in 2 sessions yesterday. The one was the startup pitch fest. It was incredible. Like, you got the winners of the AI solution challenge. There were 15 winners in around 6 segments: healthcare, education, agriculture, others, NLP, and I'm certainly missing one of the mobility. And the one that touched me a lot is this startup called Cognable. So Cognable is started by this the husband-wife founders, and it's a platform for autism spectrum. Kids with autism. They do screening as well as intervention. The thing is, the founders, they had a child with autism. And so they had to go through all the challenges of raising one, and then they realized, they had a lot of information, or the thing.
I think I can pitch in there because the session that I covered was actually about creating awareness, and this one thing that we agreed in the end, towards the end of the session, was the importance of storytelling and folklore to bring about the empathy and the awareness. That I think was another interesting point.
So Cognable is I think that's my favorite from the 15 startups we saw yesterday. Then there was Shakila Devi. I'm sorry. So she was not a startup; she was an individual. So that was like
I saw her part.
She was like totally awesome, right? Okay, no, I'm not a startup. I'm a person. She has this product called the product called Lung Expert, expert with an X. Experience AI. So the idea is to use image recognition on black and white X-rays, which is also a challenge. And figure out cardiovascular and pulmonary diseases. And then we had so many big names, right? You got the M5, big as familiar names in the AI startup circle. You got the M5, you got the Haptic, then you got Uncanny Vision, you got SigTuple, and Arvatic. All these startups we are very familiar with, day to day. We work. Then there is Gnani AI. It's Gnani in South Indian pronunciation, I think. So so Gnani AI, what they do was they do in Indian language speech-to-speech translation. It's something Raj Reddy was advocating day before yesterday. And I think Devanagari is another startup. They also do the similar thing, but it's mostly in India to in English to Indian languages. And then there was this college students who came up with this. So this app called Air Scanner. So when they first presented, I thought, okay, come on, what's this? This is another PDF scanner. Then they said, no, you can translate the scanned PDF. I think, what? In Indian languages, you can get the reference. Okay, you are like taking the idea of scanning your text to a whole new level. But again, like Soumitra was pointing before we joined the call, my favorite was the Amaran, the robot that climbs coconut tree. And
I knew you were gonna make that your favorite. We all know why.
If it eats the coconuts, then it's a non-stick benevolent.
So the thing is, you have it's in Kerala, for example, there are millions of coconut trees, and the number of people who can do this is not, it's a trained profession, right? They climb the tree, without any gear. I mean, they have a piece of rope, that's it, and get there. It's a very trained profession. It's very, skill is required, those things. But these days, even many people are struggling to. There is less availability of these skilled professionals. So robot is the best option. And yes, it's operated by your smartphone. But down the line, it might become kind of fully automated, and maybe go rogue and start having the tender coconut from the tree itself. But yeah, it was very inspiring, and the best part was there were also some other agriculture startups when this his presentation was happening. Intello Labs, Tata Sons, some of the startups we are very familiar with. And the folks from Tata Sons, like, they stopped the presentation for a second just to appreciate how much they love Amaran, and that was a very happy moment, right? And shout out to Shadra Sharma. Like, she was she was there. It felt like she was a Le Mans race car driver, through and through long sessions. She's the one who put it everything together. Very always there, highly motivated. It was really interesting, and then the panels were also good, right? I mean, you got Ajay Sani, Abhishek Singh, R. Ramanan from Atal Innovation Mission, Jyoti Arora from MIT as well. So a very wonderful session. It was exciting. And then I think Soumitra, it's your time. Your time is up. Yeah, we will catch you tomorrow. Yes, and then yes, learn as much as is possible. It's like you would be. I mean, I'm learning a lot of things every day.
Oh yeah, huge. So I'll catch up with you guys tomorrow.
Yes. All right, Soumitra.
Thank you.
Sure. So the another section was the gap between the language gap in this country.
I think we're seeing a lot of traction for the language use of AI.
Yes. So I think the reason is something like what Raj Reddy was propagating. The bottom of the pyramid. You got around over 1 billion people there, right?
That's correct.
And these are semi-literate people, most of them, right? I mean, they can't read or comprehend something from a passage, but I think they can have some sort of literacy, but not digital literacy and things like that. Okay. So the bottom of the pyramid, they actually were never a beneficiary of the information revolution because of this. And most of the content, they were saying, a significant number of content in internet is in English, right? And then there's a disparity. I think the biggest disparity is the number of speakers and the resources available. If you want to create translation models, you need resources to train the machines and algorithms. And to make that happen, you need a lot of resources. But there's a huge disparity.
I was surprised when Raj Reddy said that people abroad thought that everybody in India speaks English, which got me thinking, are we
Really?
Yeah,
that's a new sort of a.
Yeah, he says that people that he speaks to abroad, they think that everybody speaks English, but whereas it's only about 1%, 2%, I don't know, who actually can speak well and understand the language.
I would reckon it's a little more than that, but definitely not as much as they think.
So see, English is one of the hangovers from the colonial days, but of course, English has become the primary business language in the world. Even though it's comparatively, I mean, people might think everyone speaks English, but if you look deeply, languages like So I mean, yeah, there's Mandarin, but then there is Spanish, French, which is spoken by a lot of people. Even language like Bengali,
Bengali, yes.
is spoken by a huge number of population. Hindi is there, of course. So that's the thing he was telling, right? There's a whole disparity between the number of speakers and the resources available. And we had a few other incredible NLP researchers. This was like the best of India's NLP mind. You got Pushpak Bhattacharya. I mean, he was a brilliant mind. Then you had Rajiv Sehgal. You know, he was also speaking about how do we accomplish it? How do we create more resources in other languages? So that's one area he was talking. And Kalika Pali was incredible. You know, she is the one who pointed out this statistics difference, right? How this the number of speakers and the availability that Vivek Pani, and that was a very serious thing. I mean, she was pointing out, right? Thai is a language that's spoken by very few people. Even Thai has out of all the material internet, Thai in Thai language it is 0.3%, and everything from Indian language combined together falls under 0.02%. Like there is something wrong, right? In that sense.
Horribly wrong.
Yeah. So, and one important thing is like, we can say as much as we want the mobile phone revolution, the broadband network, but if our people won't get the connection, get the resources in the language they understand.
Yes.
So without that, it will be extremely challenging to make these people the beneficiaries of these technologies.
I think another thing that has repeatedly come out in the sessions is the need to democratize the revolution, and something that Dr. Rahul Panikkar rightly pointed out is the need to co-design. But I do understand that these things are easier said than done. But that is really the only way to take it to the middle and the bottom of the pyramid. So we need to see how. I read. I think we have someone on one of the panels who's actually the founder of Zoho, who's actually setting up his centers in the village.
Sridhar Vembu. Did he join from another tractor? Because last time for Experience AI, he joined the session from a tractor, and it was incredible. I think he's near a village in Tenkashi in Tamil Nadu, if I'm correct. So then we also had Bhiksha Raj, who is he was a scholar in NLP, speech recognition and other areas. And Bhiksha Raj was pointing out at the mostly about the harmful side that can happen, and are we overselling the technology? So it was a very comprehensive panel. Your technical part from people like Jawahar of IIT Hyderabad and Pushpak. Then you had this moral side brought by Bhiksha Raj, and then Kalika speaking about the statistical part. So it was a very very fulfilling. And today we have so many things happening. I think we are out of time for today, because now the day has started on Race 2020.
We need
so
to be
everyone,
back to
yes. So yeah.
Yeah, the mails have already started. It's going to be a busy day as usual, but it's been good. Thank you all for joining in, and I think we'll be back again same time tomorrow with more updates, and all the best. I hope you guys have a fantastic day ahead, covering all the more sessions and learning so much more. We'll see you very soon. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Have a good day, everyone.